Okay. Purple. Well, welcome, welcome. I'm very excited and I am now officially purple. So happy International Women's Day to everyone. Really looking forward to getting started very soon.
Okay. I think we are right at the top of the hour. Should we give everyone a few more minutes to log in, or how are you feeling, Tamara?
Yeah, I think we can give everybody a minute or two. People are just now starting to come in and we're coming in pretty quickly. So I think we're in good shape right now.
Okay.
We're at 33. We had at last check, we had 85 registrants. So this is a very, very good start.
Absolutely. Okay. I almost feel like we need music or something.
Truly.
get us going.
Didn't
It
we
gets so
talk about
quiet.
this? We had an idea of music, and then I don't know if we actually decided on it.
Yeah, I remember that. And then I don't know. We ended up not
Making
going
a
full
note
circle.
on that for our next event to have
Yes, we're gonna,
some
and then we
dance
have to
party.
decide what kind of music.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. There's a pretty wide range of options there. Very cool. Yeah, I keep seeing this admit button pop up. So I know somebody's on it. Somebody's hitting them faster than I am. So that's
Yeah, I'm admitting almost everybody. Like I said, right up until a certain point, I won't be able to do that, but
okay.
I'm monitoring this pretty quickly.
Right. Fantastic.
Kirsten, now that you're here, I want you to know that I'm going to also make you a co-host.
Great.
It's fine.
Yeah, that would be great. And then she can, hopefully, Kirsten, if you don't mind, you can continue to admit folks as we jump in, because I know Tamara will be speaking as well. If you don't mind helping us with that, that'd be really helpful. Okay, if you're just joining us, we are getting ready to kick off here in a minute. We just have a bunch of people that are coming into the session. We want to make sure that we're welcoming everyone. Okay. Great. So let's go ahead and kick off then, if we can. Welcome to our first ever SSPI-WISE global event in honor of International Women's Day. Really excited that we have gathered so many dynamic individuals in recognition of this moment. Of course, it's something we want to experience year long, but it's a nice moment just to kind of take a breath and say, hey, let's celebrate the tremendous accomplishments happening in this field, in particular when it comes to the developments and progress of women in space and satellite. So our theme today is going to be around the value of networking, mentorship, opportunities, holding one another up, holding one another accountable. These are all logical extensions of that theme of networking in this context. But moreover, it is an opportunity to celebrate the achievements of women around the world, and in particular in our beloved space and satellite arena. We have a number of dynamic women here today. Really excited to start the conversation with them and to do exactly that, have an opportunity to highlight those tremendous achievements and really dynamic perspectives as well. One of the reasons when we created WISE, Women in Space Engagement, at the end of 2020, was to do exactly this. Engagement was a word that a few have questioned. In fact, they said, why not, outreach or some other element? Engagement is more than just a matter of being female and being in this industry. It suggests a forward-leaning posture that you will be active in the voice of women in space and satellite, and actively participating in the process of bringing others up, mentoring one another, creating opportunities, supporting one another, all that sort of inherent in that engagement theme. So we will have some speakers today as well, and want to leave some time for Q&A with them during this session. So please be prepared to be quite engaged. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that we do have a goal for this session, that each of the participants here will keep us honest in our spirit of trying to foster opportunities and mentorship. And in doing that, in the chat tool, for those of you who are familiar with the Zoom chat tool, during the course of this 1 hour, we'd like to ask that you share a link to a job posting or an opportunity within your respective organization that throughout the course of this, we can make visible to the other participants. And also at the end, we'll capture those into one common place and make sure that it's distributed and shared on LinkedIn afterwards. Again, in the spirit of engagement. One of the other things we wanted to do today for those who had not had the opportunity to meet our dynamic chairs of the individual working groups within SSPI-WISE, continuing in that spirit of it's not just about calling into a session and listening to speakers, but really becoming very involved in all things space and satellite from a women leadership perspective. So we will have Tamara up next, who's going to walk us through each of those working groups and what they're all about. There'll be an opportunity to become a bit more involved in those towards the end of the session as well. So if I can mute myself and turn it over to you, Tamara.
Absolutely. And also, I want to say once again, thank you so much for everyone being here. We're so excited to have this first International Women's Day. And I'm going to share my screen right now and just kind of give everybody an overview of the working groups. Let's see, let's make that small. So I want to start first by thanking Rosario for organizing this amazing slide presentation. It made a big deal of difference for me not to have to be the one doing it. Our first working group is the Networking and Swag Working Group. It means just what it says. This group is responsible for networking, and eventually we'll have some swag for SSPI-WISE. Goal is networking and engagement of women throughout the industry, and they achieve this goal by engaging women from throughout the industry through social media and live and online events, and ensuring women in various functions within the industry are welcome and included. So that's management, sales, human resources, marketing, etc. The group is led by Jennifer Hoyle of ST Engineering iDirect, as well as Kirsten Roos, ST Engineering iDirect, and the SSPI Luxembourg chapter president. These are the co-chairs for this particular event, along with the efforts of working group members Adriana Apolito Bevis, Sam Baz, Catherine Dry, Julia Federico, and I want to call out Julia Federico. She's one of our 20 under 35 this year. Ha Hang and R. Martin. R. Martin and Gwen Sisto. So I want to especially thank this group because they are the initiators of the event we're at right now. Second working group is Elevating Women. Their goal is to create internal and external awareness of women currently in the industry and increase inclusion of women in industry events. They achieve this goal by profiling women within the industry at all levels and career stages, profiling proven allies, and we'll hear more about allies a little later today, companies and men in the industry that have embraced women in space. Their goal, again, is to create resources for conference planners to include women on industry panels and developing and encouraging inclusion of women in industry awards. And I hope everyone has taken note of the SSPI Hall of Fame that's going to be happening later this month, in which 50% of the inductees this year are women. Co-chaired. This group is co-chaired by Catherine Gazinski of Mansat and Caitlin O'Hara of Echostar. Mentorship. This is a big one. We're excited to be getting ready to do a lot of work here. And their goal is to assist, encourage, and empower women throughout the industry. And they hope to achieve their goals by pairing industry experts with those just joining the satellite industry to advise and support their growth, to provide a support network through pairing programs and regularly scheduled group activities, providing continued encouragement for mentees' professional development, and maintaining, this is important, confidentiality in the relationship. This group is co-chaired by Stella, all right, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get that right, Gillen, I think, from Ariane Space, and Wendy Lewis from Strategic Voice. They are the co-chairs of this group. And you will be hearing more about their efforts soon. STEM outreach is just what it sounds like. The group hopes to inspire young women and gender minorities to pursue careers in STEM fields by promoting educational activities and opportunities to bring space and STEM ideas to targeted groups. They're looking to provide direct sponsorship and scholarships, partnership with organizations, focus on these goals, committee activities related to STEM outreach. And they welcome your ideas and your participation. Obviously, STEM outreach is a long, ongoing campaign. SSPI continues to ensure that we do outreach to younger generation, and we're looking forward to collaborating with the STEM Outreach Working Group. Janice Starzik is the working group chair, and the initial committee participants besides Janice are Crystal Dredge, Audrey Putterbaugh, Marlana Goldsmith, Nina Arcott, Jing Lee, and Katie Fry. And finally, social media. So they have a goal to spread the word about SSPI-WISE, and they have been doing a phenomenal job already, making sure that all the women in the industry have a chance to participate and to contribute. They're achieving this goal through showcasing achievements, articles, and stories about the women of SSPI-WISE, inviting all women in the industry to participate through social media channels, communicating activities and events hosted by SSPI working groups. The working group chair for social media is Rosario Toxti. Elizabeth Tweedy is on the committee, as well as Benita Lalvani, Carmen Gonzalez, Sophie Gerber, and Kathy Miller. I think that's it. So I want to just take a moment. I'm sorry, Nicole, I still have you spotlighted. So I'm going to add myself and spotlight myself with you. I wanted to take this minute to just let everybody know that at the end of the session, we are going to invite women, that it would be anyone who self-identifies as a woman, to stay after the session and learn more about the working groups. We have a goal. We are hoping to attract 100 new SSPI members to SSPI through SSPI-WISE specifically. To serve on a working group, you do have to be someone who identifies as a woman. And if you do not have easy ability to join SSPI because you work for a company who's currently a corporate member, for instance, SSPI for this initial year is going to extend complimentary membership to any SSPI working group members. So I want to encourage everyone to learn more about the working groups, find out what they're all about. We've given you a really brief overview, but you'll have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. And with that, I would like to turn it back over to Nicole.
Thanks very much for that. Yes, and it's hard to believe that just in a couple of months, all those different working groups have come together. And really in the first couple of weeks after we assembled those working groups, we were already seeing the initiatives and the important progress that's been made. So again, the use of that word engagement in WISE, really exciting work. And I know I've heard from a number of these women of just how personally fulfilling the activities have been. So very excited to see that. And thank you, Tamara. I think at the end, we'll have a good 5 to 10 minutes or so that those who are interested can stay on and talk to the chairs and the participants of the different working groups and figure out how you can become a bit more involved. I'd like to now turn it over to Robert Bell. He's the Executive Director of Space and Satellite Professionals International. Robert, a couple of words for the International Women's Day, please.
Well, yes, and thank you very much for opening this meeting to people of other genders. I appreciate very much coming here. I remember distinctly when Nicole was invited by our board to serve as our incoming president, she and I arranged a meeting to talk about what it was that she wanted to accomplish, because being Nicole, I knew that the presidency was not going to be just going up on the balcony and smiling and waving, but it was going to be about doing something that mattered and something that would leave a legacy for the society. And this is what came out almost immediately from her mouth. This is something that she said she wanted to do, and I was incredibly excited. I said, yes, this is a great idea. It's really hard, or it can be really hard to start groups like this. It's even harder to keep them going. Just because, we're all busy, and what we're doing here, what you are doing here is important, but it's not urgent. And of course, urgent tends to drive out everything else in our working lives. But you've already accomplished such a great deal. As Nicole just said, I've done a lot of this work, and you've really moved fast. I know that the wise women will be doing a great deal more in the future. So I just want to start by congratulating you on what you've done, and certainly to convey my hopes for what else is to follow. I was asked to speak very briefly about this issue of allyship, which actually is a word I'd never heard before I was asked to speak it. But once you hear it, you know, of course, what it means. The goals that were set by those working groups, I hope you were paying attention to them, because they're really, really ambitious and really important. But I also think they really can't be accomplished just by being, a member of a women's group that is closed. And SSPI, of course, is very much an ally of WISE, and we want to continue to be so. I was thinking about this topic, though, and when we start out in our careers, when we start out in our working lives, adulthood, we're very concerned with identity. Right? Who are we? Where do we fit? How can we make progress in the things that we think are important to us? And that consumes us for, a couple decades, usually. And then at some point, we realize that it's not just about my identity. We realize that we actually live in a web of mutuality, that we are surrounded by allies and potential allies, because most people, most of the time, want to help us. They may not be able to, they may not know how to, but they're there, and they are potentially partners. So WISE is in this interesting position. Here we are on International Women's Day, right? Why are we having International Women's Day? Because for centuries, women have been made marginal in our economy, made marginal in so much of our society. And so it's very important that identity be recognized and be celebrated, as we're doing today. But while we're doing that, I just want everyone to bear in mind, including people of my gender, that there are allies everywhere. And that is true. Cannot be true. I can't say this sentence properly. You will not find allies better than you will find them here at SSPI, to make a long story short. I believe in this, and as long as I'm doing this job, SSPI is going to continue to support it very strongly. And it's a very small token of that. Today, we're publishing a podcast, which we do every Monday. It's being released today, and it's called The Risks of Being a Woman in Space and Satellite. It features Nicole as our moderator for it, but also Anita Burney of Kispy Space, Joyma Lee, of Boeing, and Melissa Orlick of Isotropic Networks. And those last two people are part of our 20 under 35 cohort for for the year just past of 2020. So congratulations to all of them, and thanks. I'm looking forward to listening to that podcast and finding out what some of the risks are. So anyway, welcome. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the time you've given me to speak.
Thank you so much, Robert. We really appreciate that. And of course, your engagement and all the tremendous work that you have put into making SSPI the organization that it is. This is a fantastic group to be, expanding our focus on a platform in the category of areas that are really important to us. So really appreciate that very much. Yes, that podcast, what a dynamic conversation. Really enjoyed that session. We talked a great deal about the connection between what we've experienced with the pandemic over the past year plus, and how that might even in some ways pose additional risk to women in the industry. So an important set of topics to consider, and along the lines of our continued interest in providing that mentorship, that outreach, and ability to hold one another up, hold one another accountable, and see this pandemic through and ultimately end up on the better side of things at the end.
And
So
I
what
should
we'll
have
do now
said that,
before-
I'm sorry, Nicole,
Please, Robert.
I should have said that if you want to listen to that podcast, there's a place you can go, which is sspi.org/podcast.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Many of you may have seen also today, the theme for International Women's Day has been Choose to Challenge. You might start seeing that on Twitter and on a variety of social media platforms. It's a hashtag Choose to Challenge. And that theme globally is really, as I understand it, aimed to signify the importance of challenging and calling out gender bias and equality. But in particular, as you're hearing today, also to celebrate achievements of women around the world. So I think for that, what we wanted to do is reflect our own hashtag Choose to Challenge screenshot, if you will, from SSPI-WISE. Essentially, what if you haven't seen it on social media, what you do is you just hold up your right hand, and then we'll do this with the gallery view of everyone holding up their right hand, and we'll share it as hashtag Choose to Challenge. So let's see if we can, I'm sure we can find a way to organize ourselves and take a screenshot, right? Let's see, view, gallery view, okay. All right, smile. Okay.
Tamara, I think you're going to have to unspotlight Nicole.
Well, it was on my screen. It worked out right
Okay.
on my screen. Maybe it looked odd elsewhere, but
Just
okay.
FYI, if everybody, I did unspotlight Nicole, so, but you might have to actually switch to gallery view on purpose after that.
Yep, it's me then. Thanks.
You want to do it again?
I'm okay
You
with
can do it
doing it again.
I'm seeing a lot of ladies are here in the call who have not put their video on. So I guess this is your only chance now to switch it on. Otherwise, you might be not in the picture. And the black is just too ugly to be in that picture. So a video is nicer than this black here. So you made all the effort to join us here today, and we are so pleased, and it's heartwarming to see you all here. So it's wonderful that more and more are putting their video on. This is wonderful. So do we get 50 who have their video on? That would be great. The more we are there together, this is we choose to challenge, right? This is all about that, and this is great that you're all doing that. So Nicola, back to you to make the countdown for the picture.
Okay, put your hand up. And 3, 2, 1. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so we'll save that. Beautiful. Okay. Next up, we have a few speakers with us today. Do we have Elodie on as well?
We do not.
Okay. I don't know if we were able to receive the video. I know there was some technical challenges there.
Yeah, I am still, I'm not seeing a video. I'm checking in with them again. So I
Okay.
think we'll just switch order if we can.
That sounds perfect. Okay, so who we have up first here as our guest speaker is Tina Couture, tremendous advocate for women in space and satellites, and a tremendous example for all of us, I think, over the years that we've watched her grow and develop into a number of really meaningful roles in the industry. And very excited to hear her views on this International Women's Day. Tina, for those of you who haven't met her before, is the current president of Mynaric. Prior to this, she was executive vice president of in-flight connectivity solutions at Yasat, which she'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's one of the only companies who are showing a majority women workforce, which is pretty tremendous. She brings forward 20 plus years of experience in aerospace, aviation, and telecoms industries. In 2007, she founded the ECM Group. It's a strategic management consulting group focusing on serving clients in aerospace and aviation. Prior to starting her own consulting business, she served as director of broadband communications at Panasonic. She started her career at Boeing, and she received her bachelor's in aerospace engineering from Kingston University in the UK. She's also a graduate of the International Space University. So absolute honor, as always, Tina, to talk with you. And we'd like to turn it over to you to share your thoughts with the dynamic women here.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And it is truly an honor to be amongst all of you here. And really, I'm thinking back after you introduced me on this career path that I've had, and it's not often time we get a chance to sort of stop and reflect. So thank you for giving me these moments to reflect, and especially on this topic of networking. So just so you all know, Nicole and I just met on another panel. We were asked to both speak at last year, I believe, and we made a pact, actually, Nicole, do you recall? We said our goal is to be on that panel at the satellite show in DC, you know, the first ever panel. Like, this is, Nicole and I are making a pact to say we will be on that panel, because it's really never been a woman on that main panel. So this is kind of a challenge to all of us here. One or more of us have to make it. So topic of networking, you know, I was thinking back to it, and, you know, when you span a career of almost 25 years, the tools I had in my box in the early part of my career, you know, we didn't have our LinkedIn, etc. We did have access to attending conferences, whether as a student or not. So one of the things that I keep in my mind when I think about the topic of networking, and I really believe this, and I tell everybody to focus on that. Networking isn't about what you can get for the person you want to talk to. Networking is about, it's a two-way street. It's what you can contribute to them as well. So oftentimes when I'm at a conference, I'm not, you know, scanning the room to see who I can speak to, or in a group. You know, I'm really paying attention one-on-one to people, whether I'm sitting right next to them. So I do have some strategies when I'm at conferences and events. One is, don't sit at the edge of, you know, the row, because you look like you're about to bolt. So don't do that. You know, sit in the middle. You know, that way you have a chance to look to your left, to the right, maybe tap someone's shoulder in the front and say hello. So I know those sounds like some very basic things, but it really works. And you don't have to be an extrovert to have a conversation with two people, one to your left and one to the right. So aerospace, you know, we're big, but we're also very concentrated as a community. Robert mentioned his podcast, and he actually has on his podcast somebody I went to school with, and Nicole and I were on a panel with Anita Burney as well. So we went to university together, and now we're in the industry. So what's interesting is the relationships you build early on in your career. Cultivate them, you know, hold on to them. Like I say, it's not always a transactional thing when you're networking with people. Look at it as paying it forward, how you can both benefit. I do often, you know, I'll stick to sort of the in-person venues. I know it's been a bit hard at the moment with COVID to network in person. But in the conference circuit, which is where we mostly network, or the meetups that get arranged, I do participate on the topic because I'm always wanting to learn. So I approach networking from a learning viewpoint. It's never transactional for me. You know, I will connect with you if you reach out to me. If I have somebody in my network that you'd like to connect with, I'm happy to do that after asking permission. So those are the kinds of things I enjoy doing. As my career progressed, you know, attending events led to speaking at events. So those are often opportunities we should also cultivate as a group. As I grew through my career, I also became in a position to call out conference organizers that didn't have women represented at on their panels. This was very important to me. Just a few years back, there's a conference, very famous conference in Silicon Valley, twice a year, and we just found, as I sat down, I looked around the room, and there were 5 women in an audience of 1,000 plus, and only 1 woman represented on a panel session, but actually she was introducing the panelists, not even participating. So the 5 of us, we all know, it was John Harms, who's the CEO of Momentous now, and Nagar and myself, and a couple of us, we just sort of looked at each other and said, there's only 5 of us, and we took a selfie, like you do, at a conference. But we got in touch with the conference organizers and said, we all control budgets at our companies. If this doesn't change, this setup that you have here, you're going to not see too many of us participating. So that networking was important with my colleagues, the women who were sitting right next to me, approaching the conference organizers. And I've seen a fundamental shift in the last 3 years at that event. Now I actually see women who are performing those roles, who are just as capable or better in those roles and have something really meaningful to say and I can learn from. I was looking through some of the questions that Nicole and team posed to me with respect to, should you attend networking events that maybe you don't have an invitation to? I've actually not done that. And I was talking to my colleagues and they said, I'm surprised, Tina, you would have just walked into one of these. And I said, no, they generally have a list of people, somebody sitting there with a list, and how embarrassing to be turned away if you show up at one of these things, especially it's a paid event. So I'm not quite that bold, but our industry is small enough. If there's an event that's happening and I don't have an invitation for, and I do want to attend, I'm likely to reach out to one of my colleagues and say, hey, does anybody have an event? Can I tag along? So that's always good. And, I know my attendance at SSPI dinners was always, purchase a table or a seat or something like that from one of our companies I worked at. But tag along with someone, bring someone along, I think, to one of the conferences, especially the women coming up through who may not be able to, one, they may not know about the event, 2, it could be a pricey event. Reach out to the organizers and say you're mentoring someone. So I think that's really key. At this stage of my career, networking tends to get a little strategic just because of timing. I try not to, like I say, make it transactional, but it does become strategic in terms of the goals of the company you work for, what they're trying to achieve. And I do reach out to people. I am one of those people that will look for somebody on, say, LinkedIn and say, I'm connected to them, generally 1 degree removed. So it's easy enough to get an intro through LinkedIn. But what's really interesting is that throughout my career, my networking has been supported mostly through the men I've worked for and alongside. And I personally want to make it a broader thing. I think, women should be helping women in this networking environment because it can be difficult, and not everyone's comfortable to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn or walk into a room and start conversing with a random group of generally men in our industry. So, this is the kind of thing where I do reach out to people. Oftentimes I find, at least in my career, the men have been very supportive and accept those connections. It's sometimes the reverse for women, believe it or not. I was mentioning that to my colleague earlier, that it's odd, but sometimes that is the case. It generally takes them longer. But when it comes to a social platform, I always like to let somebody know why I'm linking in with them. It's not about just building the size of my LinkedIn Rolodex. It's about letting them know why you're connecting with them. Perhaps it's something that you can contribute to them, whether it's a subgroup that you're part of on LinkedIn. So those are the kinds of pieces of information. But I know that from a career progression that I've had, I have pretty much gotten most of my roles because I have been introduced by someone into that role. Rarely has it been a headhunter or anything like that. It's because someone somewhere thought I could contribute in a positive way to the role that I'm being sought for. The role I'm in today was a connection over 4.5 years ago, and I only accepted, I've been in the company about 8 months. So these are the kinds of relationships. Focus on the relationship instead of the quantity of people that you would have in your Rolodex, so to speak. And again, let's not make it transactional, one way. It's certainly two-way or a multi-path approach. Let's make it global. We are privileged in the United States or in parts of Europe where we do have these events that we can attend, or our companies sponsor us attending. We have brilliant minds globally. So if we can, through virtual events or other, promote talent on a global basis, I think that would be great. I don't know how I'm doing for time tomorrow or Nicole, so this was ad-libbing on networking. I'm happy to take questions.
Really appreciate that. In fact, after our next speaker, we would love for you to stay on with us, Tina, to allow others to ask questions and take advantage of your insight. I love the way that you opened up when you talked about, conferences gives you that mental image of don't sit at the end of the aisle, sit in the middle, be all in, be engaged. And I think someone told me early in my career that 80% of life is showing up, be there, be counted, lean in. And I think that was a great way of opening us up. Thanks very much, Tina.
Thank you.
If we can now transition to our next keynote speaker, this time on the institutional side as well. And again, we'll have an opportunity for questions and answer after this. I'd like to introduce you to Elodie Viau. She currently serves as the Director of Telecommunications and Integrated Applications at the European Space Agency. Prior to accepting that position in 2020, she spent 12 years at global operator SES. In fact, we spent those 12 years together. She spent most of that time there in Betzdorf, Luxembourg, as a satellite program engineer, managing a variety of critical satellite programs for the company, and ultimately serving as vice president for within SES Technologies. So excited to have you here, Elodie. Thanks so much for joining. I know it's later in the evening your time. And very much looking forward to thoughts and perspectives that you have for the women of SSPI-WISE and the men who have joined us to learn from your insights as well. Over to you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I'm pleased to join this event, Nicole. That's true that at SES, and now I'm at Lisa, the head of the Directorate of Telecommunication and Integrated Application. And so it's a very key topic of the networking, because indeed, networking, it's also, for me, the way we create a project, the way we network to actually foster and go faster in creating those projects, pitch also this project. The building innovation, it's about creating links between various ideas, and also to solve issues when we will have issue during projects. Then we use this network. It's a two-way. I'm sorry, it's a bit shaky because I'm holding the phone. I had some issue of connection. So solving issue is indeed finding the right help, the right support. And for that, you are using your connection and your network. It's helping you to go faster and to find the right partner to go further in the project. So how did the networking play a role in my career? It had various, as it was mentioned. Sometimes it's more about learning. When we are during study, I will encourage you to go to as many conferences that you can during your studies and be curious and ask questions. After, when you mature during your career, at first it's helping you to be at the right moment, at the right time to progress throughout your career, but also to progress your project while you are realizing them and to realize it in a more efficient strategic when you reach a certain level to actually put the people, the right connection within your network, or to use it to bring on board the people that you need at the right phase of a task or of engineering or more business. It's really multiple domain and multiple field skill, and it's applicable for private or public ambition. And actually at ESA right now, I'm actually making the connection between startup, SMEs, mature enterprise, private, but also the public sector. And so that's all about making connections. So networking is how you create this carnet d'adresse that you can use. It's a two-way thing, as our previous speaker was mentioning. It's really work, meaning that when your network needs you, you need to be listening to it and try to say yes as much as possible to contribute, a bit like today. I'm fitting you just after my executive board meeting, and I'm trying to accommodate because I think it's important also to give back, to help give opportunity to the youngest generation, and also to give opportunity to people that want to change field or to change career path. So because I was given a lot of opportunity in the past, I think I feel like I need to do that. Also, as it is the Women's Days today, I think it's important to understand that amongst women, we need to help each other and to support because we have, at least I felt I had to prove myself much more as a woman. And no offense to the men that are listening. And sometimes it's just a perception that we have as well, not necessarily true. So, so just a best tactic for networking, really be curious, push yourself. I'm a shy person normally, but extrovert or introvert, you have to be curious, to be open, to want to work in multidisciplinary, multicultural approach. Sometimes it has a perception that is less efficient, but the overall long-term goal is achieved more when we have a network and as a team. So after, what is my approach? Is it depends really. It depends if you are at a conference or if it depends if you want to know someone. But I think the one-to-one and the group approach are two complementary approach that that is helping you, and always keep learning. Sometimes networking, you can do it at work. You can do it outside of work with other fields than your own field. What I did also is like doing some online training when you have a field where you are not the expert, but you want to gain credibility. I think now we have a very luxury environment where there is a lot of information and a lot of training that can be done remotely online. And also there is sometimes you need the contact of people in a face-to-face exchange. So going where the action is especially for network, that's very key, I would say. When I joined at ESA, I participated to a European conference in Brussels, and that's something that was very key for me. I could access it remotely, but I decided to go physically to this one because for me it was a more rich link with a few key people. And then the beauty with the networking is like it's snowball. And of course, it needs a little bit of work to keep contacting and to give to your network also some food for thought and food for maturing. So you need to entertain this network in actively participating when it's required, when it's needed, when they need you. Because it's exactly what our previous speaker said, it's a two-way, it's a conversation, the network. If you didn't get the official invite, yes, it can happen. It happened to me, and you need to find through your network how to get a small invite. So sometimes it's not easy, but you need to keep going and keep explaining why you believe you have a say at the table and why you will add value, and push yourself a little bit. Sometimes we feel a bit awkward, but that is very much rewarding if people then will realize the value added and the contribution you made, and then they will, next time you will receive the official invite. If you didn't receive it the first time, just go for it. It's also required to get out of the comfort zone, because sometimes it's field where we are less comfortable. So, but that's again, if you like learning, if you are curious, that shouldn't be an issue. After that, how to decide when and how to participate? Well, that's something that you have to feel. To prioritize, you cannot be everywhere, so you have to have the feel of priority. That's not always easy, so please, I think my best advice is to actually ask the people around you, and to do with your feeling a little bit. That will be how I will suggest. To be prepared, to prepare your question as well. That's very important. And despite the number of people that is around, I think speaking in public and asking questions in public, it's a question of practice. Same for those videos. It was not natural to me, but it's a question of really practicing and going on with it. So I think voila, that's more or less my recommendation and advice, and I'm very happy to take questions if any. Of course, if you contact me directly, there is many means of contact, by email, by LinkedIn, by Twitter. So that's we have so many means today of contacts that it's a pleasure to get in touch. And sometimes me on LinkedIn, on those social media, or in a conference, someone gets to me, and the fact that already this person does the effort to get to me, it's an indication for me that I need to pay attention and try to notify then and see what could we do more, right? So never, the worst that you can get is a no, so just go for it. So that's awesome. More or less. Thank you.
Really good guidance for all of us, Elodie. Thank you so much. I know we had a couple of moments there of a weekend communication link here, but I know that we captured the spirit and the very compelling guidance that you had there from your experience. One of the things that you mentioned, you said, you know, listen, I had to prove myself even more as a woman in the industry and in space and satellite than perhaps the male counterparts. I know that's an awkward thing to say. But for most of us, or for many of us, that is the case. We talked about this during our podcast as well, that there was a Harvard Business Review, in fact, that recently showed with the difference between men and women in terms of promotion. Oftentimes, men were shown to be promoted on the basis of potential, while women were shown to be promoted on the basis of performance. And so when it gets into this notion of push yourself, as you're saying, Elodie, and get to a place where you say yes if versus no because, you know, getting comfortable, leaning forward, taking on new and different challenges, and really engaging, I think, is quite important. You also talked about the importance of prioritizing. So it sounds great. Lean in, take on as much as you can, you know, challenge yourself, but without a deliberate and systematic way of prioritizing your time and focus, it's difficult to ultimately be very effective at what you're doing. So I wondered, for both Tina and Elodie, if we could start the question off with, what might be your words of wisdom when it comes to how to prioritize your time in a way that you still allow colleagues, customers, peers to feel that you're sufficiently giving them the attention that they deserve, yet you are trying to focus your time and energy to really advancing the cause and being successful in your particular role. Maybe Tina, if we could start with you, and then since Elodie, you teed us off on such a wonderful area of exploration, would love to know your thoughts as well, please.
Thanks, Nicole. Great question, and great listening to Elodie speak as well. So as I mentioned in the closing part of my speech, at this stage of my career, I have to be very strategic because of time and also what's expected of me to pursue in a relatively, we're almost 200-person company now, so we're not very large, but there are certain expectations that have been set for me at a corporate level. So I don't often have the time to do everything that I would like to be doing when it comes to whether supporting others within the company or externally. But I really try to make time to do that, whether it's the notifications that pop up on my phone late at night on a Sunday that somebody wants to connect with me, and I reach out and I say, oh, it takes a second to accept, especially the ones that come with a little note that says why they're trying to connect and not a sales pitch. So it's always a good way to say, as Elodie said, somebody made time to reach out to me. I can be kind enough to look at that note and respect that, and accept if it makes sense, or pass them on to somebody else in my organization that could support. Within my organization, I've made it a priority to become, as a company, more diverse in every way, shape, and form. We know we've got 30 different nationalities within our company, but we only have 20% women, and women of color is also, on a short supply. And so these are priorities for me at a corporate level, but also at a personal level to grow. So those are the kinds of things that I'd be doing. But I would say I had more time in the middle, sort of, as I was growing through my career, to do a lot more. Now it really does become, you take on a bigger role, you have responsibilities to the company and yourself to move ahead and bring people along with you.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And Elodie, have you had a similar experience in terms of how best do you shape your priorities?
Yes, and to be honest, I'm still working time to time. Do you hear me? Do you hear me correctly?
We
can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Yeah, okay, I was not sure, sorry. So yes, I just need to say that yes, it's always the priority in time compressed more and more and more. I wish the day can be like 2 days in one, but it's not the case. Priorities and also how to delegate it, because that go together and also for the network, you have to learn how to build your network on the network of your team. So it's a very strange way of thinking about delegation of the network, but there is a different level of networks that need to happen and that need to be built upon each other. And this is particularly true when you start, as Tina was saying, that when you are in getting higher in the hierarchy, you have so many things that are requested from you, and everyone wants 5 minutes of you. And at one point, it's just not possible. So you have to also be able to redirect when you are not the best person for this networking task, to also delegate those tasks to your colleagues around you and to your team. And not necessarily just to the top level management of your team, but you have to also have your full team, and even the youngest joiner and the students that join you. they have their own networks that is very valuable because it's with new skills, new mindset, new use of technology, and they are networking differently than yourself. And you need to kind of acknowledge it and use it in a way, not using it to the benefit of the efficiency of the overall organization networking. So typically, for example, we have some business incubation center within ISA that is located in all the European countries. And so there is a local ISA member that are supporting those business incubation center. So I cannot possibly network with every single countries, but they are my relay to boost this network. And then eventually I join at a later stage for some events to network with the teams that they have already in a more daily contact, let's put it this way. So there is, I will add that there is also like a tree, right? You have a network within the network. I'm not sure if it makes sense for you, but that's the way I see it.
It does. It doesn't, you know, one of the other questions that's coming in here too, and I think Elodie, you mentioned this earlier about having to push yourself from a personality and a comfort level perspective as well. There are some are declared introverts and maybe feel a little less comfortable striking up that kind of connection or conversation at a networking event. And any suggestions you might have about, you know, for those women who maybe aren't as confident or forward leaning than perhaps others? Any guidance you might have on how to feel more comfortable in those environments?
Yes. So for me, what works is at the start I was going to conferences. So I'm not a UK native speaker. So when I was going to the US, and it was a bit shy and a bit impressive to be with all the native speakers. So I took the opportunity to go with another student that was native speaker. And so going together, sometimes it's easier for some person to push themselves into. It also gives the time, you know, when you are two person networking in a networking conversation, it gives you the time, if you have a bit more introvert and a bit more reflective, to reflect on the questions that you want to ask if the other one is talking. So it removes a bit of the pressure to be when you are doing in one-to-one or in a group, it removes a bit of your pressure of being on the spot. So that can facilitate. So that's something that I used. And then also preparing a set of questions that you can have a bit of like we do today, right? We are doing those meetings, but you have standard a set of questions that we could potentially prepare for. It's easier than when you get even another question that is not exactly the same, then you are easier to talk. So preparing a networking event is for me key. You don't go to a networking event without a first preparation of who are the people that you are going to meet? What did they do in their life? What are their center of interest? What is your reflection on the topic? What do you want to get out of this networking event? Personally, from a learning experience or from a contact standpoint. So if you go with those elements of preparation, it's easier to be during the networking event feeling less lost, we'll say, by absorbed by the flow, we'll say.
I love that. I actually apply something very similar. There's a quote by Regina Brett. She says, go with the flow, or over prepare and then go with the flow. And I use that even for internal sessions. It might be a business review, a board meeting, whatever the case may be, where it's an on-stage moment where you have to be accurate, and credibility is quite critical to know the subject, to be prepared and be ready. And then when you're in that moment, have comfort in that fact that you have prepared, and you can be more comfortable and kind of go with the flow of conversation. So Tina, as we reach the top of the 11 o'clock hour here, any parting words and guidance that you might have as well for the women of SSPI-WISE?
I think as a group, we can do so much together, supporting each other. Like I said, you know, my support throughout my career predominantly came from the men around me, and I think what I'd like to do is to really open it up for all the women who are coming up in a pretty tough environment in the aerospace sector as a whole. But I do echo what Elodie and you said, is if you're attending events that are in person, be prepared. You know, if you are an introvert, do try this sitting in the middle of the road tactic, so you can just speak to someone on your left or right, make room for them. It's a lot easier to do than just walk into a group. And just be, when you be bold about the question. Everyone is at an event because they're trying to learn something or contribute something. So this is what I'd like to say is, you know, just you'll form a conversation with one person and someone else will join you, and now you're suddenly a group, and then you'll attract more people in that group. And, you know, like I say, do not make it transactional. Exchange your cards. If somebody follows up with you, do acknowledge that, and, you know, hold on to that card, follow up with them, thank them. I think those kind of interactions are important and will stay with you. I've had those interactions for more than 2 decades, and they still help me in my career.
Thanks so much for that, Tina, and Elodie as well. What a great use of the past hour. This has been, you know, return before investment, so to speak. Really valuable perspective. For those who are able to stay on for a few minutes with the group leaders within SSPI-WISE, you're most welcome to. Otherwise, there's more information on the SSPI website, as well as on the SSPI LinkedIn as to how you can continue to stay engaged. Special thanks to Tamara, Jennifer Hoyle, Rosario for spreading the word about this event, for putting together such a compelling set of speakers, and, you know, having, I know my mind is going in a million different directions about what we heard today, and the different ways that we can kind of take a breath on this International Women's Day, recognize the incredible work that's been done by women in our industry, continue to build each other up, support one another, and grow in the way that we've seen reflected certainly by Elodie and Tina today. So we'll bring this part to a close, and again, stick around if you can for the working group discussions. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank
you, Tamara, Elodie, Tina, Rosario, Robert, Kirsten. Thanks, everybody. It was great.
Yeah, I'm adding you, Jennifer, as a spotlight if you want to, well, how do we want to do it? I want to just open the floor, if we can do that, to anyone who has questions about the working groups. I'll just name them one more time for us all. Again, this particular event was put on, yeah, I think that's not going to work. How about I stop spotlighting people and just talk? How's that? So,
Love it.
yeah. Okay. So, the first group that actually brought us this event was the Networking and Swag group, which had the opportunity to bring forward this wonderful conversation that we've just had on the topic of networking. They worked very closely in collaboration with the social media group to make sure that we were able to get out the word. Because this group is so new, I want to congratulate them both, because we pulled this event together in just over a week. So and I'm just thrilled with how it came together. We will of course be doing this on an ongoing basis, and looking forward to more wonderful events like this. But I really want to extend congratulations to Networking and Swag and to social media. Other groups that we will be hearing from are the Elevating Women group, the STEM Outreach group, and the Mentorship group. So if any women have any questions or would like to ask questions about these working groups and learn a little bit more, please just chime in. We are shrunk because we're at the past the hour, so we're now down to 32 people. So please just feel free to just chime in.
I'm curious about how the groups have organized within themselves. Are people having conference calls for the group or email discussions? I'm just getting used to your interface in terms of how it works through the SSPI website.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything formal yet. We haven't used the interface yet. Although I would like to. I was too sidetracked by doing the other work to use the good platform. So we used good old fashioned email and had a few calls and just scheduled them, and people joined when they could. So it was pretty haphazard, which is not necessarily the ideal, but that was the start point. It was disorganized to start, and we went from there.
I wanna say, yeah, you know, the platform is first of all very new, and we added a bunch of people and invited a bunch of people from the last meeting to the working groups, and they're going to become more important as more people join the working groups. They're just going to be a little bit unwieldy to keep track of who all is in the group. And who all wants to know. I want to mention as a best practice, Rosario did a really great thing, which was that she posted the link to the meeting on the working group platform so that there was a meeting that could happen. It was on Teams, but the link to that meeting was actually through the platform. So it just kind of gives a little bit of structure so that even if she didn't know all the people in the group, she invited all the people in the group. And that was important because people join after the fact. So
I think
Rosario, you want to add more to that? You're on mute.
Yes, I was on mute, sorry. Yes, I have to say it's a great platform. There's a possibility to upload files and for everybody to review, even if they join after the events. So I would encourage, if you want to join, you can send, I guess, an email to you, Tamara, so you invite them to the groups that they would like to be part of. And you will see the history of everything what's happening with the group, all the files that we are sharing, and the calls that are going to happen in the future. It's I have to say it's a great tool.
Yeah. Actually, I just want to let everybody know, once you're an SSPI member, to access the online platform, you have to be a member. Once you are an SSPI member and you go to the group section, you'll be able to see all of them and can join them. So if you want to be a part of more than one working group, you're welcome to join. It's just as much of your interest and your time as you'd like to contribute. The only part where I really have to be initially involved is if you're actually not yet a member and you want to volunteer, then please do email me and I'll post my email in the chat box.
Just one other thing I wanted to mention, Wendy, oh yeah, there you are, Wendy. Everybody keeps moving around. One thing I think is important in terms of organization, which I don't think we were able to do at all in this round too much, is to make sure that everyone who wants to be involved has a meaningful way to get involved. Like, things had to move so quickly to pull this event together that I know I jumped in on a lot of things that I would rather try to find ways for everybody who wants to participate, or for somebody else from our working group, for example, to take the lead on a next event. Just because I do know that it's easy for people who have experience leading something to keep doing that and not like stepping aside and helping somebody else who might not do it perhaps as well, but could learn to do it as well or better. So that was a note to myself as I was going along for next time.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I remember we were initially talking about having panels during the session. And we had asked, okay, well, how many women from SSPI-WISE would be interested in participating in a panel? And it was like an overwhelming response. So there's a step we should take with that, knowing that there are all these voices that want to be part of the conversation. I think it's a good idea to rotate between the different working groups who takes ownership of the next event. Maybe social media takes the next one, or STEM, or what, you know, we take the spirit of that particular working group and incorporate that into the themes. And we have this incredible list of women who want to speak and want to be part of structuring the content, which is fantastic. But it is obviously, all of us have other jobs, other responsibilities. So you don't want it to get to the point where it's overwhelmingly burdensome on one group over another to put something like this together. So I think that's a good idea, to have it as a rotating contribution, and maybe for the next one we have a different group that kind of takes the torch and runs it to the next event.
I think, Nicole, that was a very valid comment you made there earlier, that you better focus on a thing. So yes, we might have so many great ideas and thousands floating, or millions even. And sometimes just better to go a step back and say, okay, where do we want to focus? Otherwise, if you have thousands in parallel, it might be too much, right? And I think next to panels, there were other great ideas, but here we are, right? We had more than 60 people who were there. It was by only a handful of people over the last 2 weeks, from an idea, hey, March 8th is International Women's Day, we need to do something. We were very young, right? We could not even walk, right? We were still small babies when you think of when SSPI-WISE was formed. And so even without being able to walk yet, we were having here our first child, which was this event. So I think this is just amazing. And I think Jennifer, with your leadership, that was great, pulling the people in. Rosario on the social media. This was done over the weekend. But I said, right, I think we don't want to always work over the weekend, right? But we can, right? We proved that. I think enough improvement done here. We all know that we are capable of doing that. Still, we did. And I think this is just the full commitment, Nicole, that the women being part of SSPI are showing here, to you, to also Tamara, to SSPI in general, and I think to all of us. And this is, we as an industry have so much more potential, especially the women that are there, but it's not stopping with the women, right? As you mentioned earlier, it needs to be that we are working as a team together with other women, but also with the men in the industry. And we are there to challenge. We are all here, and it's just great to get always a reminder. Today is Monday, the beginning of the week, and another year of SSPI-WISE is in front of us, and I'm just being proud to be part of that. So that is my comment for this Monday on this special day.
Well said, Kirsten, and I think that's probably a good place to kind of to put a bow on this incredible morning and event. Really appreciate everyone's effort that went into this. And perhaps what we should do, since we did have so many participants and others too who obviously had registered and were very interested in becoming involved, we can follow up with a link if they, since this is recorded, they can hear it after the fact, and then also remind them of the different working groups and perhaps the email address of the individual leaders who are facilitating those working groups, so that they can become involved and we can take advantage of following up on that expression of interest. So with that, thank you so very much for an incredible event. Of course, for the women who spent the added time and energy making it a success. Tamara, Jennifer, I just, really grateful for that. Thank you all. Looking forward to speaking again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Happy
Nicole.
International Women's Day.
Yay, Women's
Happy
Day.
International Women's
Bye-bye.
Day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.